Hello and welcome to this video where I talk about the Olympus TG5 and its high-speed shooting options. So here we have the Olympus TG5. I'm just going to turn it over, and if I turn it on, you can see we've got the back menu system here. So I'm in aperture priority, and if I press this button here, we can see we've got all the shooting options. So we've just got normal shooting, we've got high-speed shooting option, and that shoots at 20 frames per second in RAW. If I click on info, I can change this from 20 to 10. And I think the only difference here is the amount that gets saved to the buffer and how long you can shoot for. So let's leave it at 20 frames per second. The other thing you can do, you can shoot sequential low, but you can also shoot pro capture. Now pro capture is really interesting because it saves the frames before you shoot. So in pro capture mode, when I half press the shutter, it starts writing things to the buffer, and when I press the shutter, the frames before I press the shutter, the frame while I press the shutter are saved. So you'll get around 7 images. Is this any better than high-speed sequential shooting? I don't know. Why don't we go and find out? So I don't have access to people jumping off waterfalls or extreme sports or people doing things that I need to capture really quickly. So I've set up some dominoes, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to start taking some pictures. I'm going to push the dominoes over and see if I can capture the movement. So the TG5 has a video mode that you can put into high frame capture. So I've captured this at 120 frames per second just to show you what I'm going to do. So I'm starting off sequential high at 10 frames per second, and this definitely captures some movement and some critical shots. And now I'm using sequential high in 20 frames per second, and this captures better shots, I think. So yes, it jumps ahead, but I think it's slightly better than the 10 frames per second. Now I'm using Pro Capture, and Pro Capture gave me the best results of all. So because I was pleased with Pro Capture, I used it at a different angle to see if I could get better results and better images. And I'm quite happy with the images I got. So again, this is just me trying a different angle, although I did notice one thing. So with Pro Capture, I did notice this last domino just before it fell over looks bent at the bottom, and the reason for that is because an electronic shutter is used. Now an electronic shutter is used for low sequential, high sequential and Pro Capture, so you will get some slight distortion there. I'm going to talk about the 3 modes of continuous shooting now, and I'm only going to really focus on raw images. So with the sequential low, taking raw images, as soon as you press the shutter, you will capture an image, and if you hold the shutter down, you will capture another 48 raw images, and then it will stop. Of course, that's dependent upon you having a fast card and things like that. In my trialing of this, I used continuous autofocus, and I had some luck with frames being sharp and some were missed, but I haven't looked into any detail in that. With sequential high, for both 10 and 20 frames per second, if we press the shutter, we will capture the first image, and then we will capture another 13 images to make 14 raw images. With Pro Capture, it works a bit different. When you press the shutter, you capture the image at that moment, and you also store the 5 images beforehand, and that's fixed. So I'm just going to sum up here. Sequential low captures 5 frames per second and will go up to 49 raw images, and it will store JPEGs until the card is full up. With sequential high, you can have the frame rates of 10 and 20, and it will capture 14 raw images in a row. And again with JPEGs, it will store JPEGs until the card's full up. And with Pro Capture, Olympus doesn't state any information about the frame rate, but I do know it stores 5 frames before you actually press the shutter. So that's going to be 5 RAW or 5 JPEG. Now I found that Pro Capture gave me the best results for recording dominoes falling over. When you are looking at capturing a moment, Pro Capture is quite good to use. If you want to cover all the bases, I'd probably go with sequential high at 20 frames per second if you don't know what's going to happen. So with Pro Capture, if you take your image the moment something happens, you will get 5 images beforehand, and you can pick out of the 6 which ones are going to be the best for you. But if you don't know when something's going to happen, or there's a bit of a window when something's going to happen, maybe using Sequential Hi at 20 frames per second is going to cover you. But like I said, for my short experiment, I got the best results using Pro Capture. Thank you.